War rages again in the Middle East. Major fuel lines are disabled by shadowy groups of international hackers. Gas shortages ravage the East Coast. Inflation threatens to cripple the economy. Anarchists terrorize American cities at will. Police departments collapse. Public trust in government plummets to an all-time low. The country faces an unprecedented combination of crises all at once. But don't worry, everything is fine. The good news is that our government is run by a dementia patient. Our intelligence agencies are mostly focused on promoting diversity, and the military is busy recruiting feminists to defeat the threat posed by intolerance and hate speech. On second thought, everything is not fine. We would appear to be, to use the technical phrase, totally screwed. And there's no sign of common sense or sanity being restored in the near future. Which brings us to this. On the heels of an ad blitz by the CIA touting its recruitment of cisgender millennial women with anxiety disorders and gay men whose job is to keep the campus library stocked with stress-relieving board games to help agents cope with their feelings, the U.S. Army has started its own woke ad campaign. A new page on the Army's website highlights the stories of, quote, 5 young Americans who, quote, made the most important decision of their lives for reasons as diverse as they are. Now, the 5 Americans, all featured in a series of short animated videos together titled The Calling, are, of course, exclusively immigrants and women. Obviously, the Army doesn't want to offend anyone by admitting that it has white men in its ranks. Most of the videos are basically unobjectionable, if somewhat odd. For example, a lieutenant describes how he struggled in school, searching for his purpose in life, before deciding to pursue his lifelong goal of becoming a pilot. He assures us, quote, it doesn't take a genius to become an Army pilot. Now, this is probably true. It doesn't take a genius to learn almost any skill, but it still doesn't fill you with confidence to hear the military making that kind of pitch for itself. Hey guys, doesn't take a genius to do this. Another video tells the tale of a first lieutenant who eventually decided to chase her dream of joining the Army after spending 5 years as a singer on a cruise ship. A scene at the end of the little cartoon shows her staring out from the deck of a ship at sunset, singing about her soldiering dreams. Let's watch that.
When I was 17, I had such real big dreams. I said, Dad, I want to be a soldier so I can be like you. And though the years have passed now, feeling just seems to last now. It's not too hard to grasp now. Hey, Dad, I gotta be like you.
I'm just trying to imagine, old school Army veterans, Vietnam War vet, hasn't been paying much attention recently. Turns on the TV, sees an ad for the Army. That's that. It just thinks, what in the hell? Now, I doubt that our adversaries will tremble in their boots when they see that our military recruitment ads strongly resemble Disney princess films. But that is all nothing compared to the profile of Corporal Emma Malone Lord. Now, she tells us about her childhood growing up in a home with 2 lesbian moms and her time spent marching for LGBT rights. Eventually in college, she was inspired by her sorority sisters to pursue, quote, her own adventure, which is how she settled on a career in the Army where she says she can prove her inner strength and shatter stereotypes. If you want to see it, which, you probably don't, but I'll show it to you anyway, here it is.
Although I had a fairly typical childhood, took ballet, played violin, I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. When I was 6 years old, one of my moms had an accident that left her paralyzed. Doctors said she might never walk again. But she tapped into my family's pride to get back on her feet, eventually standing at the altar to marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class, and then attended UC Davis, where I joined a sorority full of other strong women. But as graduation approached, I began feeling like I'd been handed so much in life, a sorority girl stereotype. Sure, I'd spent my life around inspiring women, but what had I really achieved on my own? One of my sorority sisters was studying abroad in Italy. Another was climbing Mount Everest. I needed my own adventures, my own challenge. And after meeting with an Army recruiter, I found it. A way to prove my inner strength and maybe shatter some stereotypes along the way.
I am, let me say, happy that Emma has found her inner strength. But there's a question here. Do we want to promote the military as a forum of self-discovery for sorority girls? Whenever we next find ourselves in an armed conflict with a rival superpower, and we certainly will eventually, probably sooner rather than later, will the military be better equipped and able to slaughter the enemy now that it has made diversity its first priority? Now that it has sold itself as a place to have an adventure and prove your inner strength? It's quite telling that out of all 5 of the soldiers featured in the video series, only one says anything about wanting to defend our nation from its enemies. National defense does not seem to be a major priority of the Department of Defense these days. Perhaps that isn't entirely fair, actually. Let me back up. Credit where it's due. Those entrusted to defend and secure the homeland are intent on defending and securing it from at least one physical threat. That is the threat of white supremacy. The Hill has this report this week as well. It says, quote, the Biden administration's top law enforcement officials on Wednesday pledged to dedicate their resources to combat domestic violent extremists amid questions over whether the agencies are equipped to monitor such threats in the wake of the January 6th Capitol riot. Attorney General Merrick Garland and Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas appeared before the Senate Appropriations Committee for a hearing on domestic extremism as Congress ramped up its scrutiny this week of the circumstances around the attack on the Capitol. Both Garland and Mayorkas testified that white supremacist groups pose the most serious domestic national security threat in the U.S., reinforcing what analysts have long concluded about far-right organizations. Both the Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security agreed with Senator Patrick Leahy's statement that white supremacists represent, quote, the most persistent lethal threat. Let's watch that moment.
But you do agree with your predecessors that white supremacist extremists remain the most persistent lethal threat in the homeland?
I do believe they do at this time, Mr. Chairman.
And Attorney General Garland, do you agree?
I do, and that's the most recent assessment of the FBI.
First of all, how old is that guy? 640? You just retire, you people. Anyway, going into more detail, Garland went on to claim that, quote, the top domestic violent extremist threat we face comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocate for the superiority of the white race. In other words, says Garland, the greatest threat we face comes from violent extremists, but not the ones who've been rampaging through our cities, inflicting billions of dollars of damage, blocking traffic, harassing innocent people, and attacking random bystanders. Those extremists are often racially motivated themselves, but they're not the ones we should be worried about. Instead, according to the people at the highest levels of government, the racially motivated extremists that should attract our attention are the ones who aren't doing anything and are nowhere to be seen. Black supremacists can whip up a mob of thousands in an instant and terrorize cities for weeks on end. White supremacists can't do anything close to that, probably because they're hampered by the fact that they don't exist for the most part, which is a little bit of a logistical challenge, I have found. If you want to do something but you don't exist, it presents problems. This is a threat that guys like Garland have fabricated. Now, perhaps they really are up at night, frantically tossing and turning, screaming, no, the white supremacists are coming. But I doubt it. The people who invent the boogeyman don't actually believe in it themselves. It is more that they are politically bound to this conclusion. But whatever the motivations, we are left with the reality that the people running our government and in charge of defending this country against enemies, foreign and domestic, are all either left-wing ideologues or hollow shells and useful pawns for left-wing ideologues. I mean, all of them at the highest levels. They recognize no duty more sacred and solemn than to fulfill that role. They are loyal only to the ideology. They have infiltrated and effectively incapacitated every institution because they will not allow any institution, even the military, to have any priorities above and beyond the propagation of left-wing doctrine. All things and all people must be evangelists for their religion. That is how everything and everyone's ultimate purpose can be fulfilled in the mind of our leftist overlords. And no doubt, our enemies are watching this happen and laughing to themselves and licking their chops and biding their time. All of this, I guess, is just a long way of saying that you can start a free trial of Rosetta Stone today if you want to learn Chinese, which you probably should. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.